Thanks, Joy. Always appreciate the opportunity to speak at events like this. A fantastic event. It's my third time at the National Dyslexia Network Getting to Zero conference, so always a good opportunity, and hopefully we've got some messages today. Overcoming obstacles is what we're talking about. Change for the better. Some of the things that have worked in Canberra, some of the things that we've implemented locally in Canberra that have succeeded, and just like Bandy there overcoming her obstacle of walking over Dahlia, she did very successfully. Just a little bit about me. I'm vision impaired. I've got no sight in my right eye, very limited sight in my left eye, so presenting isn't always the easiest. So I've got some assisted notes up here to just give me a hand as we go through these presentations to make sure I cover everything off for you. I'm also a trained tax lawyer, so no idea what that's got to do with animal welfare, but here I am. I suppose when I started at RSPCA, they were in a bit of financial difficulty, so coming in with a little bit of financial knowledge enabled me, I suppose, to review our finances, review what we're doing, and put some of the money that we had into our life-saving work and build some community respect, some community rapport, and develop some revenue to continue our life-saving work. So that was, I suppose, one advantage. Today we're going to talk about the obstacles that animals face and the obstacles that shelters face. So first I wanted to look at obstacles that animals face, animals that are surrendered, they don't know where they are, they're sick when they come into the shelter. What should you do? How should you treat them? How should they act? Animals don't often know how to act. They've eaten a pair of shoes or they've eaten a gas heater and blown up a house. They don't know that's the wrong thing to do. And they wind up at a shelter, so we need to do some behavioural modification. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about stigmas. I'm not necessarily going to talk about pit bulls, but it's a way to talk about stigmas and some issues that we face in the shelter environment. We need to look at why animals are surrendered. I think one of the key things that shelters face is this never-ending stream of animals entering the shelter. I know in Canberra it's about 5,000 animals a day, 20 animals, 15 to 20 animals every day coming into the shelter, and we need to ask those questions. Why are people surrendering animals? So putting in place strategies that reduce the intakes, I think that's the first step we can take. Talking to people. You know, somebody comes in and says, hey, I need to surrender my cat because I can't afford to buy it food this week. Well, why not give them a bag of food rather than saying, okay, we'll take your cat. I can't afford to keep these kittens because the mother cat's had a litter of kittens and I need to give up them all. Well, if you give us the kittens, we'll dissex the mother for free and give her back to you. So again, stopping that cycle of dissexing, stopping the full surrender. So it's just thinking a little bit outside the circles. I've got a dog that's incessantly barking. Well, don't surrender him. I'll send you my behavioural trainer, no charge, to your house, and we'll work on that barking issue so the animal isn't surrendered. That's the type of stuff that we're doing in Canberra. We're really trying to get this early intervention and stop animals coming into the shelter and start to see reductions in intakes, I think, is the first way to reducing euthanasia. Animals, when they are surrendered, if you don't have that opportunity or you don't get that success and the animal actually does come into the shelter, what are the things that you need to look at? Obviously, the animal's going to be scared, it may be hungry, it may be in pain, and you need to eliminate all those issues first before you can make an appropriate assessment of the animal, before you put it up for adoption or make it available for adoption, because often animals, it's a different environment, especially for cats. I think one of the problems with cats in shelters is this fact that they've got to live with 100 or 150 other cats in close quarters, and that's totally alien to them. They've come from a home, either an indoor or an outdoor home, possibly only one cat, maybe a screaming child or something like that. Who knows why they've been surrendered. But they end up at shelter and the environment is totally different. So you really need to try and create that home environment or a different environment to really see the attitude of the animal and understand that animal before you make decisions. Often animals are euthanized because the cat spent 4 days at the back of the cage. Well, obviously it's going to spend 4 days at the back of the cage. It's scared out of its brain. So why should it be euthanized? Let's come up with a foster program. Let's come up with another strategy to home this cat. Moving animals through, one of the things we do in Canberra is we dissex everything up front. We do it very quickly, within a couple of days of coming to the shelter. We don't wait for behavioural assessments of dogs. We dissex them because once their behaviour pass are up for adoption, we don't want any delays, and I think that's critical. The cost of dissexing in a shelter, when you have a vet on staff, is very cheap, very reasonable. I've taken that decision to make sure that everything is dissexed and available for adoption as quick as possible, so we don't have any delays into the shelter. Compassionate vets are key. We've got 4 fantastic vets in Canberra, and I'm sure just about every shelter in the country has compassionate vets. I think it's important that you tap into that compassion. And I was asked recently, what's the single trait that comes through with staff, specifically vets and vet nurses in our shelter? And I said it's that compassion, it's understanding the animals. And euthanasia is our last option. We look at a range of options. We had a cat last week that was found by a finder and brought in, had a fair few medical and health issues with it. The finder said they didn't care. If the owner didn't come forward, they'll happily take it home and take on any medical and health care. And the vet sat down with this family and spoke them through it after 7 days after the owner didn't come forward. And we sent this cat back to this family with a couple of health issues, with a program and a regime in place, so there was no suffering, there was no welfare issues with the cat, and we could manage its health. So again, the vet's willing, in some places or historically in the past, vets would have said, no, sorry, that's a medical fail, this animal needs to be euthanized. So let's just look outside the square again. It's about the culture, and that goes with that compassion, having compassionate vet clinics. Staff have the ability to go up and say, well, why are we euthanasing this dog, or why are we not euthanasing this cat? It's having that open conversation. I was chatting to one of my staff. I mentor one of our girls in the cattery, and she came to me and said, oh, Michael, I'm worried about socks. What can we do with socks? And we went through a range of strategies, and I put her in touch with the vet and her senior supervisor in the cat area, and they came up with a strategy and a plan for this cat, and ultimately Socks was rehomed despite some issues behaviourally and medically that we had with him. So again, it's culture, it's giving the ability, empowering the staff at the coalface, empowering people who are working with the animals, who see the behaviours, see the issues every day, to raise that and talk about it and have a conversation about each animal. How should I act? Temp testing is key. Often temp testing gets criticised. Some people use it as a euthanasia tool. Well, this dog's failed or this cat's failed, full stop. We don't do that in Canberra. We use it as a benchmark. It's a test to say, well, where this dog is. Well, it's a resource guard, or it's separation anxiety, or it's dog aggressive, or whatever. What can we do to adjust and manage that behaviour to improve the chances of this dog going home? And that goes to time limits and space limits and a whole range of things. And having the staff, one of the commitments that I made, a place where we put our resources was in behavioural trainers. We've got 3 qualified, certified behavioural trainers on staff that work with our dogs every day to modify behaviours. And we don't put any pressure on them. I don't say to the staff, well, you've got 7 days to home this dog, or you've got 14 days to work with this guy. There's no pressure, no time limits, and they just work with dogs. And sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes 14 months, 15 months in a few cases that we've had. Specifically with cruelty cases, sometimes dogs come in so traumatised and so debilitated from an experience that they've had that our inspectors have brought them in. The last thing the inspectors want is for this animal to be euthanized. So we put every effort into recovering those animals. And don't get fooled by stigmas. There's lots of stigmas around, whether it's a pit bull, whether it's a 3-legged cat or a blind cat, or a cat with diabetes, or a white cat with cancer. All these cases that people see, and historically I think shelters have gone, well, this white cat's got cancer, we'll euthanise it. Well, let's just take its ears off, and it might look a bit funny, but it's still here. Probably make good photos on Facebook, who knows. 3-legged dogs, we do amputations routinely. We do a whole range of things. There's been a lot of talk about pit bulls specifically. Thankfully in Canberra they're not banned at this point in time, and we continue to home pit bulls very successfully. So, you've got to be the voice of change, be the voice of reason, sit down and talk about the real welfare issue. Is it a welfare issue that this cat's going to get around on 3 legs? My assistant was fostering 2 kittens. They came in 2 days old. She's bottle fed them. They're 9 weeks old now. And they both went up to the vet clinic for their dissecting procedure when they reached 850 grams. One was discovered that it had a broken shoulder and broke it very early on in its life, and it had fused and healed, and the other one had a heart murmur. So a bit of concern about those 2, but we're both going to home them both. We're going to put some statistics, some figures and some facts together about the heart murmur kitten. She'll go out, no problems at all. And the other kitten, Lucy, with the broken shoulder, we're going to monitor her for a month. We may amputate, or the fused bone may not impede her at all. But put a lot of effort into these 2 kittens, and it would have been a shame had either of them been euthanased, which may have happened. So that's some of their obstacles. So we shouldn't stand in their way. We should just let them run free and go mad, as Dahlia is down there in a park in Canberra. Then we put in place, once we've removed all those obstacles, we need to remove our own obstacles, and often shelter staff and shelters have some obstacles. And it's about space and it's about money, a lot of the things that Richard was talking about. It's about some resistance to change, and some people just can't bother. If you can't bother, well, there's jobs elsewhere for you. You know, you're working in animal welfare for a reason. And we do have to look after our staff's welfare, and we do need to make sure that we try everything. Space is always a problem. It's, you know, you could build a shelter as big as, you know, as you want, and I think we would always feel it here in Australia and in most jurisdictions. I know I could. We've got you know, innovative strategies that you need to use to manage your space, whether it's foster caring, whether it's delaying surrenders, whether it's wait lists, a whole range of strategies that you need to use to help manage the overall herd, the overall numbers that you've got in your shelter. And I think that's the key thing. Some people say, oh, well, we're full, therefore we euthanise for space. I remember in fireworks days in Canberra in the early 2000s, you know, staff used to be directed to euthanise animals because we're going to have fireworks, we're going to get 50 dogs in over the weekend, so we need to create space. It's just a ridiculous way. Why would you euthanize one dog to get another dog into your shelter? It just doesn't work for me. I think it's ridiculous. So come up with other strategies. And some people criticise as well, Michael, you've got a wait list, you don't let dogs come into your shelter. Well, we do. We have this wait list. We have an honest, open conversation with staff. We work with our local pound, as Richard was saying, collaborate and work together. It's a local government pound. Their motivation is totally different to ours, but we work with them. We send them dogs, they send us dogs, our staff go there, we support them, they work with rescue groups, we talk to the rescue groups. You know, it's about the best outcomes all round for as many animals as possible. Money's always an issue. It's not a wealthy sector, sadly, always an issue. So you've got to come up with strategies. One of the stories I saw once was two shelters a kilometre apart, the fictitious shelters, and one is all the staff are in uniforms, they're nicely dressed, the gardens are done, the kennels are clean. And the other shelter, the staff are unhappy, they're not in uniforms, the shelter isn't clean, the kennels are smelly. Donors will invariably donate to the better looking shelter. So it's about your image, it's about that presentation. First impressions are very important. Make sure it's a welcoming place, make sure it's an encouraging place. People see that you're investing their donations appropriately. They see that it's a happy, nice, friendly place, and you've got more chances of getting animals homed. And talk about your successes. As Richard's saying, don't bag other people out, just talk about your successes, you know. Don't be ashamed. If you're succeeding locally, you have some good outcomes, talk about it. Celebrate the successes, work with colleagues, work with partners, and talk about those successes. Often I'm asked about staff turnover and industrial issues, and it's a very difficult industrial climate in Australia with the Fair Work legislation. Very hard because most shelters have more than 15 staff, so they're not considered small businesses. They don't have expert staff to invest in human resource management and understanding the intricacies of the Fair Work legislation. So something that needs to be looked at, staff turnover. You know, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes people self-select, sometimes people to choose. And I say to people, you're on the bus or you're not. You know, it's a key thing that you're in the business of saving lives. This is what everybody's has a role, whether you're in administration, whether you're a kennel worker, cattery worker, vet clinic, wildlife, wherever. Your business and my business is to save lives. So if people aren't willing to make that commitment, well then maybe the shelter isn't the appropriate place for them. Push through change. I've pushed through a lot of change, whether it's statistics, whether it's reporting, whether it's marketing, whether it's advertising, whether it's promotion. Sometimes as a leader you've just got to push through that change in your shelter, deal with some of the fallout, some of the questions or some of the resistance that some people put up, some of the old hands who've been there. Just had a staff member who resigned after 13 years and I sat down with him and I said to him, 13 years you've been here, same job in kennels, an animal care assistant at the entry level. And he said, it's just not fun anymore, Michael. And I said, all right, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to volunteer. So his philosophy was, coming to work 5 days a week doing the same thing wasn't fun anymore, but if he could do that 2 or 3 days a week, that's exactly what he wanted to do. So he resigned his paid position, shifted, and he's now a volunteer. So when some people see that resignation as, oh my God, a 13-year staff member's left, I see it as, wow, he's just changed his circumstances, he's just changed his lifestyle, he's still doing exactly what he's doing, and he saved me some money, which is fantastic. That was really cool. And it's better to lose good people than compromise welfare. Bad people, sorry, than compromise welfare. You don't want to lose the good people. Hang on to them. Give them pay rises. Some people say, why bother, you know, every time, you know. And I often talk about the story of a man walking along the beach, perhaps here in the Gold Coast, and there's hundreds and hundreds of starfish have been washed up. and he bends down, picks up one and he throws it back into the ocean. And a passerby says, "What are you doing, mate? You can't save them all." And he says, "No, I can't, but I just saved that one." And I think that's what it's about. It's about not being apathetic. It's about trying to save every animal. You're not going to save them all, and I don't think anybody expects you to. But if you have that culture and you have that philosophy, you can get more and more outcomes, more and more positive outcomes, and it starts to become infectious through your shelter. The only infectious disease that you want in your shelter is the disease of change, and people willing to change and come up with some new strategies. Staff welfare is critical. There's been a lot of talk on compassion fatigue and people losing impetus, and I think we need to manage welfare. We do a lot of that in Canberra. We have an employee assistance program where we allow staff to let down their hair a number of times a year. They can contact a support person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their families can, volunteers can. We have days, I think our Christmas party this year, all the staff are getting a jumping castle, and we're going down to Lake Burley Griffin in Canberra, and they're going to punch each other out in a jumping castle, and that's what turns them on at Christmas. That's what they can do. We have movie nights in our dog training yards. We have pizza nights, a whole range of different things, 10-pin bowling nights, a lot of fun. And we give them a ticket to our gala dinner every year, and they go out and let their hair down on the dance floor there. So it's about understanding the welfare and really trying to build that team spirit. Some people say they've tried all that. I've had a number of people say we've tried all this, Mike, and it hasn't worked. Tasmania, as many would know, went through a serious threat to the credibility of RSPCA nationally, with significant board issues that were played out in the media down there a couple of years ago. And I was fortunate enough to meet a couple of board members and be asked to support Tasmania, and we made some significant changes to boards, to staffing, to policies and processes down there, and in a 12-month period we dropped euthanasia and increased homing rates there, as you can see by those percentages. So I think you can do it. I think it's attitudinal, it's cultural, and it's really pushing through that change and just understanding the business you're in. It's about saving lives. It's about doing everything you can. Look at that. They're worth it. I think they are. And finally, one of the strategies that I always use is my passion, integrity and intelligence triangle. If you invest the right amount of passion and you invest the right amount of integrity in yourself and in your business, and use that little bit of intelligence, and I often say to people, intelligence is not Albert Einstein intelligence. It's about not getting up on a swivel chair to change a light bulb. It's that type of intelligence. And if you invest those three things in equal portions, you'll always make the right decision. Am I doing the right thing for this animal? Am I using my integrity to home this animal, to euthanize this animal? Am I using my integrity to raise this money, to get this sponsor in to support us? So that's what it's about. It's about sharing the love and understanding that in every dog, no matter what angle you look at, you'll see a love heart somewhere. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Joy.